Well, everyone, the news is in. The United Kingdom has said no to the merger of Activision and Microsoft, which is fairly bad for Microsoft. They will be absolutely not happy with this. This could even mean that this merger will be kicked past a certain date that may even result in a pretty damn hefty termination fee, which really does mean that even when he loses, Bobby Kotick wins, because apparently Bobby Kotick is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Also, of course, this is pretty damn impactful for we who play games, but oddly enough, the thing that they've been got for, much in the way that, say, Al Capone did a lot of things. He wasn't really caught for those things. He was caught for taxes. For a lot of what people would have been concerned about, say, Call of Duty or like those other aspects, that's actually not what they were got for. No, they were got for the cloud. So today, it's going to be pretty damn interesting with the help of our sponsor.
Brilliant. They're the best way to improve your prospects and develop yourself, especially in those lucrative STEM fields. And it's all via their fantastic site and app. And to try everything that Brilliant has got to offer for free for 30 days, visit brilliant.org/Bellular News or click that link down below. Also, the first 200 to click at 20% off an annual plan, which you'll totally want. And man, we do the A-levels, right, in the UK, and I did all three of the sciences, like maths, physics, and biology. And I've got to say, compared to how I learned those, oh my god, I wish Brilliant was around when I was younger, because it is the best. It is approachable, it is fun, it is interactive. Now, for a very contemporary thing, you've all heard of ChatGPT, right? I mean, there's even a South Park episode on it. It's insane, it's incredibly useful. But imagine actually understanding how something like that works, and being way more informed and being able to properly harness it. Well, Brilliant's got you covered with Introduction to Neural Networks. It's a course that's the ideal way to learn how this stuff works, and it's all through fun, interactive quizzes that are focused around interesting problems. It is such a good approach, and I don't know about you, but I've got so many gaps in my knowledge, right? I sit there endlessly consuming like popular science videos, and it was actually really refreshing to hop on to Sabina Hossenfelder's course on Brilliant and actually be like, okay, this time, instead of watching a video from her, I'm doing her course on Brilliant, and I'm actually breaking out a scientific calculator and feeling not like not like I'm a bit dull, because it has been a while since I've invested into myself in that way. So I would totally recommend it, especially if you're thinking about those high-paying fields like computer science, artificial intelligence, physics, which, physics, yes, there's physics and going into academia, but also many institutions like banks, they love people who have got a physics background because they love how they think and those very essential logical thinking tools. So I love what Brilliant do. I'm so happy to have them on board, and whether it's for yourself or a younger mind, I would absolutely recommend brilliant.org/Bellular News for a 30-day free trial of all they've got to offer, and then the first 200 to click get 20% off their annual premium subscription.
So then, the block time. They said that they basically found the significant lessening of competition with regards to the provision of console gaming services would be unlikely, because Call of Duty being taken away from PlayStation would impact Microsoft/Call of Duty too negatively. So a lot of those Call of Duty points, they kind of just rejected those. But they did say the significant lessening of competition with regards to the provision of cloud gaming services would be likely, and for that reason they're blocking it. And we immediately see, of course, a reactive dip in the stock of, in the stock of Activision. It's one of those things. Often people just say, buy the rumor, sell the news. I think this genuinely is not what people expected. I think people were anticipating some behavioral amendments being required, right? Something like that. They would have to legally say, we will do X, Y, and Z in the interest of preserving competition. But no, they've just went ahead and blocked it.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, right? Because every bit of reporting on this before was, this is likely. This is probably going to go through. There might be some remedies, there might be some stuff going on, but generally it's going to go through. And so many of the other countries have approved it completely fine. I think the only major people who were, obviously the FTC were suing to block it. But that was kind of, the FTC who are going to fight and, go tooth and nail for everything anyway, even just to show that they have some power and they are trying to do these things like they have done with Meta and the likes. But also the European Commission, they deferred to, I think it was the end of May, they deferred the decision to. Everyone's like, okay, this will just be, everyone's going to, hey, we're serious about this, but let them through anyway. Mm-hmm. Everyone expected that. So when early this morning, because for a lot of US people, of course, this all happened with the UK CMA. So it was announced this morning, UK time. The entire day, the past like maybe 6 or 7 hours has been chaos.
Yeah, we've just been seeing like a lot of Americans waking up, reacting to the news, not being what they expected. Yeah,
people just like, everyone's been talking like this was a done deal, and it's now an undone deal. What does this mean? What's going to happen now? This doesn't feel right. It feels like
our StarCraft 3 stocks down.
As I've seen pointed out on Twitter, they may never have been up, but only because Microsoft are also sitting on a whole host of dormant IP, and I think we can talk about some of that stuff a little bit later on. I know we've talked about the potential of it going through to death, so now we have to talk about the opposite, what's going to happen now. But I think it is mostly people were completely blindsided. It feels like a sharp twist in timeline almost. Everyone's like, oh yeah, this is a done thing, sure. Microsoft have been like announcing it and talking about it, and they've been, marketing, we're our friends at ABK will definitely join us, blah, 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 blah. And now it is just, no, sorry, gamers. And I think that's the case a lot of people are going to take that stance of, but Blizzard, we wanted Activision and Blizzard to be saved. And the CMA went, no, because there's danger to cloud gaming. And thus we have to actually talk about why they're blocking the deal, because it's not for Call of Duty.
Yeah, certainly so here's the why. With an estimated 60 to 70% market share in global cloud gaming services, it already has a much stronger position than its rivals. They found that Activision titles, including COD, World of Warcraft, and Overwatch, will be important for the competitive offering of cloud gaming services. Play WoW on the cloud. Who knows? I mean, they found that then after the merger, Microsoft would find it commercially beneficial to make Activision titles exclusive to its own cloud gaming service. Sure. And given its already strong position, even a moderate increase to Microsoft's strength may be expected to substantially reduce competition. So that's basically it. They already have the lion's share of the market. This would only make them stronger. CMA is not okay with that. Yeah, and one small thing that I haven't seen them talk about, so I'm not entirely sure if it's fully happened yet because it's hard to find details on it, but back in, I believe it was 2019, it was Sony and Microsoft announced a partnership. And this is 2019, so it's pre-pandemic, so everyone's brains has forgotten all this. It's all gone. It might as well not have happened. But they announced a partnership with Microsoft on Azure. Yeah, specifically for PlayStation Now, talking about how they want to use that in future and how they want to like run all their services off that. And that makes sense because Sony don't have data centers everywhere. And I'm sure I'm not entirely up to date with how general corporate technology is run. But as far as I'm aware, Azure is like the king effectively of everything. AWS.
There's like AWS. AWS is really good for web hosting stuff. But it's like Azure in the corporate environment seems to be a little bit more... I've seen more people talk about that than AWS. So it's like, it feels like those are the massive ones. Obviously, Google's have got their own. But it is just a case of, well, if Sony are running their stuff on Microsoft's cloud platform, that's the strength. That then means Microsoft have so much of that market share. They have so much of that like global cloud stuff they're talking about. All right, well, that's a good start. What happens? What happens next? What happens when? And they didn't talk about this, which I think for a reason. But all the King Mobile speciality, all the expertise there, as another part of that. And you go, oh yeah, this is literally like 10, 15 years down the line. Cloud could be big, and it could be over. Even though I think that's the time scale they're thinking about. Yeah.
And even on that, so there were deals that Microsoft signed with other cloud gaming services, right? Now, some of the deals that Microsoft had already signed basically didn't really count in their favor. Basically a too little, too late situation. Now, there have been some instances where Bethesda titles have been grandfathered into what was already agreed upon. But broadly speaking, they have not made their games available to everyone, right? Like on cloud services. And when you look specifically into that, they say that they didn't consider the agreements Microsoft entered into with NVIDIA, Boosteroid, and Ubisoft to actually change that because of material uncertainty around scope, terms, and enforceability of those agreements. and they only apply to a few existing, like partners rather than a full, spectrum of actual and potential rivals. So it's, too little, too late. If they sign a bunch of deals trying to look good, but ultimately the CMA just takes the view that, well, those deals don't matter. And also, who knows, you could change stuff.
Yeah.
Microsoft have certainly went back in a few instances against the spirit of what they've said, like thinking specifically about Bethesda stuff.
And also Microsoft as a whole, who obviously have done horrible things in the past on this front. But I think ultimately it's a lot about the too little too late. But one of the things they talked about a lot was actually the fact that it's, okay, you've signed deals with existing partners, that inherently excludes anyone new.
Yeah.
So if someone comes up, say if an innovator in the market decides, we can make a really cool handheld.
Okay, now, keep your friends closer, get friends close, enemies closer.
Yeah, so it's like, obviously, someone comes up in, say, 5 years' time, say 6 years' time, and they've looked at the success of the Steam Deck, they've looked at the probable upcoming success of the Asus ROG Ally.
Yep.
Or maybe if Sony go ahead with their rumored Q Lite handheld, which will be everyone uses a picture of the Vita when they're talking about for some reason, well, for obvious reasons, but the whole remote play thing. If someone comes up and goes, we've got a better one of those, so we can innovate, then Microsoft will say, well, we're not obliged contractually to give you any of our games, so your ability to innovate and break the market and provide something better for consumers, bang, gone. And I think that's ultimately what they end up saying overall for their real, no, you're too big and you are going to, by virtue of existing, no matter what you say now, you're going to smother anyone else.
Yeah.
And we cannot have that happen for this new market.
That is so key to it. Actually, but before this, Microsoft said that they would be open to creating an independent oversight body, right? To, just be like, are you still being good, Microsoft? That they would help fund something like that to keep them on track so that the deal could go through. Now, the CMA basically had already said that they don't want a solution like that because that's just like expense, another oversight body. Who wants that shit? For the CMA, they want what is called a structural change, which we talked about a while ago, but it's the idea of no, structurally, we want you to split this, say, Activision-Blizzard. They would want maybe them to split some of those companies up so that structurally, it's like the change has been made and you are, not left having some sort of bizarre self-funded yet independent oversight body that exists purely to keep you right. So they said that Microsoft's incentives to make these games on the Windows operating system compatible in, say, a rival operating system would be significantly lower. That's one example here. Of course, the Steam Deck is Linux. And funny enough, I remember, was it a tweet from Mike Ybarra of having Windows installed on his Steam Deck to play Diablo? It's like, well, why not have that be going in Steam OS? Real good, So that's one thing that people could think about. And then there was also just some more important but technical kind of boring stuff. But basically it's just Microsoft in that world. They don't have, just the incentives are not necessarily aligned with long-term competition. They also point out the likes of, say, Stadia died. So it's just that thing of competitors left, right, and center are failing. What if Amazon Luna, they just decide to, wind that down, and then the CMA sees, okay, right, so everyone is failing other than the people who are gobbling everything up. That obviously to them will not be good for competition 10 to 20 years down the line.
Yeah, especially when you look at Google and you go, well, Google had everything in place except the games. And then they didn't get games and then it fell over.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a million problems with Stadia. But ultimately they went, well, Stadia failed, so how's anyone going to compete with you if you're stronger in this market? That's impossible. You already have won. We need to stop you from cementing your win forever. I think in the case of, how a game Monopoly goes when someone gets a little bit too much money or a little bit too much land, and then it's all just a tight squeeze until the end. It's like they're trying to avoid that point specifically. But I think the Stadia part's really funny because I could imagine someone at Xbox who was there in... when did he join? I can't remember. It was the early 2000s, or in the Xbox One era. Because everyone credits Don Matrick for the failure of the Xbox One. But there's also someone else who's been a profound failing upwards. I was going to use a very pejorative term. I'm not going to do that. Person who was there around the same time. And that's Phil Harrison, the person who launched Stadia and then shot it and put it in the bin. So it's just the spectre, an echo of Phil Harrison hanging around, ruining Xbox for a second time in 10 years. So I thought that was hilarious. Someone in that office will just be like throwing darts at Harrison's face going, you bastard, you've done it again.
Yep.
There. I thought that was funny.
Now, to kind of round this up with some of the CMA's thinking, the bit where they're actually thinking about us, and I suppose quite literally us, considering their jurisdiction, they basically talk about like market stability, consumer good, that kind of thing. And here's what they said, that MAUs, monthly active users, in the UK more than tripled from the start of 2021 to the end of 2022. That's quite something with cloud gaming. They say it's forecast to be worth 11 billion globally and 1 billion in the UK by 2026. And by way of comparison, the sales of recorded music in the UK in 2021 amounted to 1.1 billion. So basically, because value of this market, very big, therefore they care. Now, I would certainly wonder how they count all of that. If you think about the amount of money somebody puts monthly into Game Pass, like, I know, there'll be some streaming as a part of that value proposition. For a lot of people, it's just going to be the games, though. So you'd almost wonder, like, would that artificially inflate what some of those numbers look like? Because streaming is only part of a bundle, and, you can't get only the streaming. So you can't really isolate streaming only. But to continue on with what they were saying, that both for new users who are unable or unwilling to buy an expensive console or gaming PC, and for existing gamers looking for alternate devices, basically that's like the role that cloud plays, and they think the competition for that reason is really important. That strong competition in the market could make cloud gaming better and more affordable to consumers. And by contrast, they found the merger would make an already strong incumbent in this market even stronger, which could result in Microsoft retaining a big share of the market and facing limited competition from current and potential rivals.
Yeah, I feel like for people watching this channel, you're going to go, well, who's going to be playing cloud? That's a terrible idea. And I think we've had that attitude for a long time, especially as many of us were onboarded to it with Gaikai back in the day, and going, well, that's terrible. That's terrible. Oh, what's the Stadia? That's terrible. Oh, what, Luna? That's getting better, but still not terrible. So I know I've seen people, I'm like, that actually is a pretty compelling experience. Now you've got games that PCs can't run because they're awful ports. It's fine if you run them on a big data center. You'll actually get the playable version of your game with a bit of latency. So it's getting better over time.
Yeah, and the Microsoft one, like, on a good connection, it's shockingly good. Like, fair play to them. It is really good.
Yeah, so that's a case of, if you imagine a world where it's literally, hey, NVIDIA haven't released a budget graphics card in 15 years. So you're playing games in 10 years' time on a 4070 or something along those lines. Or the case of like the next console wave, they go, well, do you want to buy our little shitty budget cloud device, or do you want to spend $800 or $1,000 on the console? Because either way, you're on our platform.
Yeah, like if you buy a new TV, say a new Samsung TV, like there's an Xbox app on your TV. You just go and play.
Yeah.
Right? And even, with the GPU side of things, I don't know if this is like a 4060 Ti. I just saw some headlines today, but it was amounting to $400 US. And for loads of people, that's the price of a console.
And it also only has 8 gigs of VRAM for the rumors for the 4060 Ti.
Yeah.
Which, if you've been looking at today's news of Jedi Survivor, yeah. Good luck. Good luck running that with 8 gigs of VRAM. You're gonna definitely need it. And if you think of the future, where you go, okay, well, this is gonna get worse, then maybe you'll be in the same boat that I'm going to be in, which is I'm going to fight tooth and nail to not play games on cloud. And I'm also not going to have a shit ton of money because our economy is in the tank. So I'll find a way to play games. Maybe I'll just emulate old games and have fun that way, as opposed to ever, seeding the ground of playing cloud and getting all that input latency and stuff like that. Maybe it'd be that, but for other people who are just joining the industry, or just coming into video games, or the kind of players who play Call of Duty and play FIFA, but don't particularly care how, or aren't as in tune with video games in the same way that if you're watching this channel, you likely are. It's like I've been saying for a couple of years now, realistically, we're a shrinking part of the games market overall. Comparatively, there's still a lot of us, of course, and we still hold a lot of power in it, but a shrinking one compared to all this cloud stuff. And I feel like that's who they're protecting immediately. Is just, we don't want Microsoft to rule the world. Because, if you said, well, especially after the last couple of Microsoft announcements for core gamers, you're like, Microsoft are in a really strong position of releasing no games that anyone wants. or gives a shit about or that run well. But that's clearly not the reality going forward, I think.
So to wrap up like some of the future of the story, as for what's going to go on, they're obviously going to continue pressing for this deal. There is an appeals process, right? Now, these appeals take about 2 months to process in full, with the Competition Appeals Tribunal more likely to side with the appealant in the event that they are subject to some fault on the part of the CMA. We actually had a recent thing going on there with Apple. Now, if the appeal is upheld, the CAT can take a few different actions, right? Modifying the original decision, removing it completely, or referring back to the CMA, or they can simply just dismiss the appeal. But the way that the system works means that Microsoft can't just go on ahead while the appeal is ongoing. So, at the very least, this is a big thorn in their side. And one of the reasons why is that if Microsoft misses its July 18th merger deadline, it actually owes Activision-Blizzard $3 billion as a termination fee, which is kind of hilarious. The undefeatable Bobby Kotick. Of course, if you look at then just for the reactions from Microsoft, it is just everybody, they're all just, this is bad. The CMA, they have a flawed understanding, as Brad Smith says. Lulu Cheng.
Yep, that was funny.
Lulu just always goes very hard on Twitter. So Lulu, of course, went pretty damn hard. She's their EVP of Corporate Affairs. And yes, I think this big corporate affair has been blocked. And then for quite a lot of people, it's being seen as a done deal that, even though there are things to talk about with competition, some people thought maybe would make some things better for consumers in the short term. So there is a bit of, there's some bad things there. I mean, here's from Jazz, in a major win for market leader PlayStation, UK regulator has blocked the Xbox and Activision-Blizzard King deals over cloud concerns. This means that cloud providers like Nvidia won't get Call of Duty, hilariously. And
Jazz is an interesting person to follow. I thought he'd fallen out with Xbox after a series of tweets about how awful their entire strategy has gone down, but then immediately straight back on there, but market leader PlayStation is one.
Well, that is the thing.
It is true.
Jim Ryan's taking him to town.
Oh, Jim Ryan's laughing. We were talking about this in the office, just Slack, of he's definitely this whole day, he has had some didgeridoo by Aphex Twin, some 92 UK techno, because he joined Sony in 94, 95. He's just been in there shirtless dancing that all day long. He's been having the time of his life going, got him. And every other post I see online about this result is, so Jim Ryan's check landed today then? Sweet, fantastic. Because everyone assumes government authorities are, paid off and bought. And I don't know what would give them that idea. Not that I think it's happening here, but it's a funny thought either way.
Our final funny thing is the Activision Blizzard more official corporate response, which was to do release their earnings stuff a day early. And also contain a little bit of a response. We're going to talk about this another day in the channel, but we'll let your appetite here. TLDR, their net revenues are up 25%, which they're very happy about. Everybody's doing well. Activision grew 28% year over year. Blizzard grew 62% year over year. It's all coming up good for Bobby. Except he can't be acquired for $95 a share. And remember, $95 a share. That means if you hold shares in this company, let's just say they're trading at 84. So if you buy at 84, they sell the company at 95, you'll actually make the difference. So at least the market expectation, the closer Activision Blizzard is trading to that agreed price with Microsoft, then the more the market is expecting a successful merger.
And that's why it was trading at $86 until today, where it's now trading at $77. That's exactly what happens. But there's a few things I wanted to kind of double down on, just because I think they're interesting. Because I haven't seen many people talk about the appeal stuff. You mentioned the Apple bit there earlier, where Apple kind of actually won an appeal against them. That is an exception. That is a big exception, because the CMA and the CAT have been brutal since 2020. They have had their teeth out going, no one's going to win a single case against us. We're going to do our job. And the only reason Apple won was because it was such a big case that CMA kind of passed it off to government, who promised they would do something. This was from 2019, I think. Then the government never got round to it. because of the UK government, of course. And then it came back to the CMA. They went, okay, well, we'll do it now. And then they did a bunch of research in, I think it was late last year. And when they brought it up to Apple, and they were like, okay, here's the research we've done, Apple were able to say, actually, legally, based on these things and these parts of the Enterprise Act, that research actually shouldn't be done because it's out of statutory time limits. So it was thrown out on a technicality. Almost every other time, the appeal has been dismissed, or very small changes, and then or very strong remedies have been done. But otherwise, the chance of this getting appealed are very slim, especially when you think the FTC are on them, and now that it's delayed, the FTC will be able to hit them whenever they get around to it. But also the European Commission haven't made their choice yet. They're going to make that choice on May 22nd, and now they don't have to be the first people to say no. They get to go, all right, well...
this is like sending the Challenger 2s. They're like, the UK said no, okay, we're all going to follow.
Yeah, it's straight up just... Well, we don't have to fight them now. We just get to say, you know what, the CMA have a pretty good point, actually. We'll just literally just copying their answers and going, yeah, if the UK don't think it's going to be good for UK people, then in the spirit of that, it's probably not going to be good for Europeans who also have economic difficulties and want to go forward and all that stuff. So it seems like this could be like, I think I heard it described as a domino falling. This could be the first domino of Microsoft plans being thrown straight in the bin.
Yeah, it's
just fun.
It is just overall fascinating to me. I think about even just thinking about like government, in different countries. You typically expect the Conservative Party to be not as like heavy in regulation and that kind of thing.
That's it. The CMA is not the government.
But that's it. Yeah, it's man, it's all very interesting. And
that the CMA not being the government is why Bobby's and Lulu's responses, you'll have seen them. They are very interesting.
Yeah,
Microsoft said, okay, we will work and appeal to this because we think you don't quite understand what we mean, so we'll go through the appeals process. And then Activision, from two different angles, went, the UK will die if this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
If you don't let this through, we will leave. No one will give you any money, and you're already a third world shithole with no money. You're going to hell. I've paraphrased a little bit, but they did talk about like...
enjoy your low wage, low productivity, shitty economy, UK.
Yeah.
We'll acquire you.
Yeah, they more or less said, talked about the dire economy and the problem that consumers will face and stuff, and how that this is going to be a blow to them and all. You're like, are you trying to get the UK government to send an email to the CMA or get them on the phone and go, here boys, this is looking bad, you wouldn't let that through there, we kind of need this one. We know you've got principles, we know, but principles don't matter because we want money. And I think that's what they might actually be going for. So that might be a case, but fundamentally I think this actually might be blocked, which means Blizzard won't be saved.
And there's a side to this. Remember, not that many people watched it, but we did do a video covering some of the Zynga money that Take-Two Interactive makes.
Oh, yeah.
And then you look at a lot of those times where the Activision and the Blizzard, because they're called Activision-Blizzard. This whole calling them Activision-Blizzard King, that's a relatively new thing that people started doing since like the big lawsuits and everything. If you actually look at their stock ticker, it's Activision-Blizzard. It's not Activision-Blizzard King. Yet, in all those times where the Activision and the Blizzard segments weren't doing that well, it was just, hey, we're King. We have mobile game numbers. And one of the things that Microsoft wanted was King. Microsoft, they kept on saying, oh no, this is we don't care about Call of Duty. It's King that we want. So that's obviously going to be a blow to them as well.
Yeah,
it's not one that I think any of us will really give a shit about, but nonetheless, a blow, because I think they would absolutely love to be diversified a little bit more into mobile. And you sort of think about their big thing, right? With Microsoft Teams. I'm sure you've seen the graph of just users between, Slack, and Slack just hits 20 million, while Microsoft Teams just 200 million. You look at Bing, all the Bing AI stuff. It's one of those things. Google is still the king, but with Bing, they have actually made a little bit of a dent from some numbers that I saw.
Never thought it'd be possible.
And then you think about Microsoft, they wanted to get into mobile for so long. Sort of a strategy that kind of ran aground during Steve Ballmer's time running the company. But the likes of King really would have got them back into a market that I think they really would like to be in. So just for that, like, very broad Microsoft strategy of very much being, I mean, an octopus with many tentacles and I guess many heads. I don't know, a weird multi-headed octopus.
A kraken octopus, I guess.
Kraken octopus.
Yeah. Not kraken, the hydra, I meant to say. A hydra octopus,
hydra
whatever that is, yeah.
Yeah.
You cut off a tentacle and new head grows or something, I don't know.
Oh, get very confusing. Seems like a good boss.
Yeah, I was literally thinking about the first God of War boss. It's a good ass boss. Hydra on a ship.
But it's a blow to that side for Microsoft.
So
They undoubtedly wanted to just slither and slime around and just get everything.
Yeah, I feel like Satya Nadella is going to invite Phil Spencer in for a talk at some point, and it's not going to be a very nice talk, I imagine.
I don't know.
Either that or Phil Spencer will invite someone else in for a talk, and that won't be a nice talk. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of very frustrated conversations in Microsoft today, because this is not how anyone... This is not how I think most people overall want this to go.
The thing that's odd to me, I think, people are generally very positive in Phil Spencer.
Yeah.
Because he does, to a lot of people, just like feel like, oh yeah, Phil Spencer, big gamer, likes video games, been doing video games a long time, great.
I actually saw someone who has Phil on their friends list post that Phil doesn't give a shit at the minute. He's just sitting here playing Pillars of Eternity. So I don't know if that was true or not, but yeah.
But even though there is all of that good sentiment, around Phil, for a lot of people, it's just like, yeah, well, everyone likes Phil. How did Halo Infinite happen? How did that happen? Where are the games? And that's what's interesting.
That's exactly something I think is interesting to briefly talk about, because whenever this was first announced, we were all very much, seems good for Blizzard. Microsoft seemed to have their heads screwed on in terms of their approach overall. So this seems like a net win for core gamers, because you're going to get Activision games on Game Pass, so you don't have to give them like Diablo 4. You have all of the Halo Infinite can take as long as it wants and be delayed and come out good.
I'm high after Age of Empires 2 Definitive, which is still getting loads of content and updates.
Yeah, so there's obviously that's one of the good examples of it going well. But then you look at stuff like Redfall, you kind of go, well, what's happened here? Have you just sent Arcane to die because of this? Just launch it, it's not ready, whatever, launch it. Even though it might be fine at launch, just without the performance mode, it might be okay. But it is a bad sign, and people are taking it as, oh no. And that's next week. And there's where's the marketing campaign? Obviously, I might just not have seen it, but it doesn't seem super heavy. So it seems like Microsoft are actually mismanaging things.
Minecraft Legends.
Well, that was actually great, wasn't it? Generally, or is there issues on that? No?
No. If you look at...
Okay.
I believe it's low 70s, but it's
right.
It's one of those things. It's enough that the because OpenCritic, it has the score averaging stuff. It also has critics recommend.
Yeah,
it was quite low on that.
Right.
So I've seen stuff for it range between a 5 out of 10, a sort of a 7 out of 10. I played a small amount of it. I thought the controls were quite clunky and bizarre. It's the sort of thing in one world, I completely forgot what it was, but there was a voxel role-playing game. I'm talking a decade ago, maybe a little bit more. One of those perpetually early access things, and it eventually, I think, ended up being vaporware or something. But people were super hyped about that. You obviously look at Hytale with, some of that promise, and I think people, maybe this is just not realistic expectations, but you could look at a Minecraft Legends and think okay, this is a small, very mid spin-off. Could you have done more with that IP? Yeah,
because Microsoft they still have a lot of wins. It's just their wins are quiet. They're talking your Grounded, your Sea of Thieves, those kind of live services that are doing well for a market. But I think in the core gaming world, you're looking and going, especially now, Dragonflight is looking a little bit better on the World of Warcraft side, and Diablo 4 is looking to come out like an absolute smash hit. You're looking going, is Blizzard coming back reasonably without Microsoft's help? Would Microsoft getting Blizzard, obviously would love to see the end of Bobby Kotick in his career in video games, but at the same time you kind of go, is the Microsoft the way they're doing things now, would that be better or worse? And I think people are still in that mindset of when this deal was launched, it's this would be better for Blizzard. But now you're like, would it? And that's a question you actually genuinely have to ask.
You look at, Scalebound. Sorry.
Please.
Like, you look at some of those very notable, not particularly good Microsoft experiences, it then felt like quite a lot of reformation, rethinking, a lot of really good, positive things were happening at Microsoft. But then thinking about 343 and everything, you do just wonder, like, what are the reasons? Now, they do have plenty of successes, like, the Forza games that like Forza Horizon, the Playground do. It's like, yeah, that's fantastic. So they do have those strong pillars. It's just, I guess their M&A strategy. Their M&A strategies meant that, like, they've immediately got some Bethesda titles, but a lot of that's just going to take time.
Yeah.
And we are still in that situation of like, Fable, way in the horizon. Avowed, the Obsidian game, way in the horizon. And it's like that for a decent few of their projects. So they might actually be quite well poised to have a very strong late generation. Maybe a situation where perhaps even you see Elder Scrolls 6 as a generation swan song game. Maybe not. Could be start of the next generation.
At this rate,
perhaps at this rate.
If you apply Microsoft delay to Bethesda development times,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I don't know. Well, I guess that's really it. Let us know what you think.
It's been a crazy day thinking about this. This is not how anyone expected this to go.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Hey, keeps the job exciting, doesn't it? So,
sure does.
That's it. If you want to check out some fun, albeit a bit grim stuff, check out this video next. With that said, we'll see you next time.